Ms. Sobia Kapadia is a senior resilience and climate advisor specializing in feminist climate justice for also climate resilient housing, women-led humanitarian across Asia and Europe. With over 20 years experience spanning migration, urban planning, post-disaster housing reconstruction, and climate adaptation programming. She has worked, same like me, working with the UN agency, international NGOs, City Network to support pro-poor, gender-responsive shelter and settlement solution in crisis, affected and climate vulnerable contexts. Ms. Sobia work focuses on designing and governing living lifestyle initiative that brings together communities, local authorities, funding partners, and test and scale climate resilient housing at settlement and city scales. She has extensive experience convening multi-stakeholder forum, advocacy on policy and regulatory for reforms, building evidence on what works and to protect low-income and marginalized households from the climate risk. You can have your her insight, which is like climate impact to housing across four aspects. That is regulation, finance, governance, and knowledge. Thank you for expecting our invitation to share your experience. The second of our panelists, I would like to invite Mr. Esmael Ebrahim. Please move forward, sir, and sit over there. Mr. Esmael Ebrahim is Director General. He is a seasoned public servant and development practitioner with extensive experience in governance, housing, and halal industry development. He currently serves as Director General of the Ministry of Human Settlement and Development in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, providing strategic leadership in housing policy, human settlements planning, institutional development, and intergovernment coordination. As Director General, he also contributing to budget formulation, strategic planning, multi-sectoral coordination, and high-level cabinet engagement for the ministry. In 2011, he was appointed as a commissioner of the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos, further strengthening his role in advancing Muslim Filipino welfare and development. Internationally, he served as a technical advisor to Afghanistan Ministry of Hajj and Religious Affairs under SIDA, where he developed the Afghanistan National Hajj Strategy. He also pioneered the ARMM as Halal Certification Guidelines, which became the basis of the Philippine National Halal Standard, and led key international halal cooperative initiatives. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation to share your knowledge and experience. The third presenter is Ms. Pradasanie Kumari. She is Undersecretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs. Please take a seat over there. Ms. Pradasanie Kumari is working as Undersecretary in Ministry of Home Affairs, the nodal agency for BARMM in Nepal. As chairperson of the District Disaster Management Committee, she played a crucial role in preparing disaster preparedness action plan for the reduction of disaster risk and implementation of action plan. Her effective close collaboration with the security agency facilitated the prompt conduct of rescue operations during the landslide in the district. The coordination with the central, provincial, and local authorities during the disaster has helped to deliver timely relief to the affected communities. Her regular and systematic coordination among DDMC members ensure the efficient distribution of essential resources and medical supplies during the landslide in the district where she worked. He has dedicated nearly 2 decades of service of the government of Nepal, contributing across various sectors and holding multiple significant positions throughout her career. Thank you for being with us and sharing your knowledge and experience. On her presentation, we will have the climate impact versus policy. Even there is many partnership developed amongst government practitioners, private sectors, and community has been developed and deliver multi-level action. However, the gaps still persist. So we try to answer together today. The last presenter will be Mr. Rashid Razzak. Please come forward. Mr. Rashid Razzak is Project Director of Housing Reconstruction Unit. Mr. Rashid Razzak, Program Director, HRU, is distinguished leader with the more than 25 years of experience in management and public policy. His career reflects a unique blend of technical expertise and social commitment, having undertaken social transformative initiatives in health, education, and immunization that improves lives across communities. He has played a pivotal role in foreign-funded projects that strengthen governance in Balochistan, introducing public financial management reforms, pioneering e-government initiatives, and building the capacity of key government officials to enhance transparency and accountability. In resilient housing reconstruction, Mr. Razzak is supervising the reconstruction of more than 280,000 housing units in Balochistan, with 97,000 families getting grants in phase 1 with amount of 161 million US dollar. Very impressive. Under his leadership, housing reconstruction has evolved into a catalyst for resilience, dignity, and sustainable development. He stands as a leading voice for integrating policy management and community engagement to build stronger and more inclusive society. So, colleagues, so as we have come here, the question will be why it is so important that climate resilience has to scale up, because as you know, for me myself, I learned about the climate change is in 2015 after the Kyoto Protocol enforced. But what is the relationship with the, it was in 2005. It was how to relationship with the housing reconstruction. Because whenever I was in Aceh at the time, there are so many critical, but there are so many critics to our, as a housing agency, how to respect the climate resilience, and also with the climate change, and also with the environmental friendly construction. So this discussion we will focus on finance, how the policy, the financing, the mandates, and the coordination mechanism. I know Mr. Esmael have the very strong experience on the coordination. How to enable all of this effort at scale that we can provide our community with housing resilient, climate housing resilient. Without further ado, I will ask Ms. Sobia to take forward to this podium to present. Thank you.
So a bit about me. We are not just in a changed context at this present time. We are in a broken contract between climate reality, humanitarian promises, the politics, and the money that sits behind. In shelter, we often look into, we often find ourselves comforting with walls and roofs and these ideas of what these 4 dimensions are. But in a climate change world, housing is an infrastructure. It is an infrastructure for survival. And right now, our institutions too often make that survival contingent, temporary, and transactional. My name is Sobia Kapadia, and I work at the intersection between humanitarian response, international development, societal resilience, and climate policy, from gender, social protection, across Asia, Europe, and UK. What I'll share are not blueprints, but working hypotheses from these intersection of my work experience. How we move from projectized shelter to civic infrastructure for resilience that are accountable to people and to planetary boundaries. As a way into this, I offer a simple provocation. In this changed climate housing, changed climate, housing has become frontline climate infrastructure. It is no longer a peripheral sector or a line in an appeal. It is a place where flood water, heat, and displacement quite literally arrive in people's bodies and daily routines. If you look at Pakistan over the last 15 years, from the super floods of 2010 to the 2022 catastrophe, every institution, land, housing, and finance, even remittance networks were tested. They were all dragged into response, ready or not. Sindh is a sharp case study, and for this presentation, I will use a Sindh experience because I was present here in 2010, and I worked throughout in referencing to 2022 catastrophe as well. There are districts that were wholly submerged underwater. The villages have been rebuilt 3 times now in the same hazard footprint. Families living on the embankments without a legitimate address. So we need to question here as shelter and settlement community, how long can we go as business as usual? And how long can we treat each flood as discrete event and housing as a humanitarian line rather than a backbone for climate resilience, where every rebuilt house, land title, and the payment is part of a living institution, architecture, and not for a one-off project. So let me set this context further and elaborate the context of Sindh in a changed climate. Who is hurt at a society level? In Sindh and across in the similar context, recurrent riverine and urban flooding sits on the top of deep poverty, informality, and displacement. People at the sharpest edge, they are poorest, they are marginalized, they're women, they're informal workers. These are the people who are pushed into the most exposed housing with almost no say or how they live. At the same time, the strong social fabric, the networks, the trust networks specifically, that hold the neighborhoods together in these survival catastrophes, in these survival times, they are ignored during the housing policies. Housing policies only counts units and plots, not the social infrastructure that makes survival possible. Climate justice is upside down. Those who contribute least to the emissions carry the heaviest burden of flood, heat, and disease with the thinnest safety nets. Risk is systematically dumped on those with least power. And how the land is altered, we know that we build against the landscape, not with it. Every bad layout we approve today is a future debt. We have treated ecosystems as empty real estate. Now the land is pushing back. And all this is happening in a moving climate. Heat, flooding, salinity are no longer events. They are baselines. Yet standards, maps, investment still assume yesterday's climate. Well-meant reconstruction can hardwire harm if we build fast in the same places with carbon-heavy, hazard-blind designs. Our climate reality has moved. Our housing institutions are still standing in the old map. So one would also ask in terms of governance that why the institutions are lagging. Why housing, water, health, land, finance, each run on separate logistics. Each of these ministries can subsidize risk on one hand, and on the other, tries to manage it. We are trying to govern multi-generational climate risk tools, multi-generation climate risk with tools designed for single term in office. So now my method starts from lived experience in Sindh, the villages and towns of Sindh, and then work upwards towards policies and finance, and not the other way around. What has these climate crises exposed in the context of Sindh? In 2022, we saw that at a society level, those who were visible were catered, but there is an entire population that is invisible. We know that there are layers of society and environment, climate and governance that connect, yet they were left isolated. Since emergency institutions did move at scale, but they are still fragile. They were built for single crisis and not to steward a long transition into permanently changed climate. In terms of large-scale construction, came with a climate tag to it, but often without fully accounting for future floods, land degradation, and ecological thresholds. The 2022 floods revealed a cluster of interlinked problems: housing on high-risk land, weak data, fragmented mandates, and short political horizon. By naming these together, we can focus on one core topic: building climate-resilient housing systems, not just delivering more projects. And now let me offer 4 pathways where this shift is possible. I am conceiving and presenting here the idea of a community lab on the basis of the work that I have done so far, or I have envisioned that what should be the way forward in this humanitarian reset. 1, pilot to scale climate resilient housing. 2, initiating civic partnerships. So pathway 1 is a standard that live on the ground. We have begun putting flood resilient features into guidelines. If standards are going to live beyond the PDF, we have to finance local governments, train paraprofessionals, and design for incremental upgrading. So resilience is something people can literally build into their homes over time. Pathway 2 is moving from projects to civic infrastructure. Institutional platforms behave less like one-off project, but more like shared infrastructure with the communities. That means communities learn with each other across the cycles of flood, heat, and displacement. The point is not just houses, it is a single architecture where humanitarian development and climate money are answerable, accountable, and transparent, both to people's dignity and the limits of the Delta, i.e. Sindh. Pathway 3 is a communities as civic designers. We need to empower neighborhoods and communities as designers. The capacity that is available here in this room needs to be transferred to the community so that they are aware of the intricacies of development and the future risk that they might follow. We test futures before we lock them in these communities. Layouts, building material, water sanitation, energy systems, governance contract. Failure is safe, learning is fast. We need to get comfortable with this idea, and people move from beneficiaries to partners or co-governors in this shared ecological infrastructure. I know this is a huge dream, but one day this dream will come true. Pathway 4 is data, time, and anticipatory care. Floods have exposed deep blind spots: tenants, informal owners, seasonal migrants, women's claim to land. Repairing these blind spots is the first act of anticipatory action in the institutional scaling up. Regulation, finance, governance, and knowledge. In terms of regulations, rules that reach the real city. Finance, money that flows to the street, i.e. ring fencing a share of climate and recovery finance. Governance, i.e. permanent tables, not one-off or ad hoc systems. Knowledge is as a living commons of practice. For me, this is a way moving forward, and it is how we turn pathways on a slide into a piece of civic infrastructure. Something rooted in one settlement anywhere, for instance in Sindh, but designed to speak to many deltas. And I, through this presentation, offer you to help me build up this dream in terms of finding collaborations and partnerships. Thank you.
So the next will be Mr. Esmael Ebrahim. So I invite you to come forward to deliver your presentation.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته and good morning. Today Today, I would like to share the experience of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARMM, in southern Philippines, or south part of the Philippines, in pursuing institutional pathways for scaling climate-resilient housing, an experience shaped by vulnerability, transition, and opportunity. As a brief background, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, or BARMM, was created through the Bangsamoro Organic Law, or BOL, signed in 2018 and ratified in 2019 through plebiscites, replacing the former region to grant greater autonomy and self-governance to the Bangsamoro people after decades of conflict, fighting, and uncertainties, culminating years of peace talks with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front in the region. Part of the establishment of the BARMM region is the creation of the Ministry of Human Settlements and Developments, where we belong, that serves as the primary government agency responsible for housing, human settlements, and urban development in the region. It leads the formulation of policies and plans, regulates housing and settlements development, and monitors performances to ensure safe, inclusive, and sustainable development. Why does climate-resilient housing matters in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao? BARMM is a post-conflict region where fighting or conflict took place for more than 40 years. 40 years of conflict, and we can see what is the face of the region after that post-conflict in the region. It is also among the most climate vulnerable areas in the Philippines. Our communities are frequently affected by floods, storms, earthquakes, and environmental degradation. These hazards often result in displacement, damage of homes, and prolonged recovery periods, especially for the poorest households in the Bangsamoro region. Many of our families live in informal high-risk settlements, often near riverbanks, coastal areas, and low-lying lands. Poverty compounds these risks, limiting people's capacity to rebuild stronger homes or relocate to safer areas. At the same time, BARMM is a transitioning autonomous government with newly devolved powers. This transition brings both challenges and opportunities. While institutional systems are still being strengthened, autonomy gives us the space to design policies and programs that are context-specific, culturally sensitive, and responsive to climate realities. In this setting, housing is not just about shelter. It is about dignity. It is about stability. It is about peace building, and it is about resilience. Now let us see and look on the approaches made by the Ministry of Human Settlements and Development. Primarily, the Ministry of Human Settlements and Development adopted a governmental or government-led and system-based approach to climate-resilient housing, wherein the regional government is positioned as the main driver of climate-resilient housing while focusing on building long-term systems rather than isolated projects. Second, rather than treating resilience as an add-on or a purely technical feature of our projects, we work to embed resilience into policies, plans, and partnerships. This means integrating climate risk considerations into land use planning, housing site selection, building standards, and community development. And lastly, the MHSD recognizes that government cannot do this alone. Hence, we focus on strengthening public-private partnership, engaging developers, financial institutions, NGOs, and international partners as well. This partnership allows us to leverage expertise, innovation, and additional resources while the government provides policy direction, safeguards, and long-term vision. In BARMM, scaling climate-resilient housing is not about isolated projects. It is about building an enabling institutional environment where resilience becomes the norms, not the exception. Despite progress, we have also significant challenges as well. First, limited public funds remain a major constraint. Competing development priorities such as education, health, and infrastructure mean that housing budgets are often stretched. Climate resilient design may also require higher upfront costs, which can be difficult to justify without long-term financing mechanism. Second, there is a lack of a fully coordinated approach across sectors and agencies within the region. Housing, environment, disaster risk reduction, land management, and social services are often handled separately by different ministries. Without strong coordination, efforts can become fragmented, leading to delays, overlaps, or missed opportunities for integration. These challenges remind us that resilience is not only an engineering issue, it is an institutional and governance challenge. From our journey, several important learnings stands out. First, government leadership is essential indeed. In a fragile and transitioning context like we in the BARMM, the government must set the direction, align stakeholders, and ensure continuity. Without clear leadership, scaling efforts remain pilot-based and unsustainable. Second, flexibility within policy frameworks matter. While policies provide structure, they must allow room for adaptation to local realities, whether related to culture, geography, or climate risk. Rigid frameworks can hinder innovation, while flexible ones enable learning and adjustments. And thirdly, the most important is scaling is institutional, not only technical. Strong designs, materials, and technologies are important, but they will not scale without institutions that can plan, that can finance, regulate, and coordinate effectively. Building resilient housing at scale requires investing in systems, capacities, and partnership, not just structure. In closing, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao experience shows that climate-resilient housing is both a development and governance challenge. In a region shaped by conflict, vulnerability, and transition, resilience must be built into the very institutions that serve our people. By strengthening leadership, fostering coordination, and embedding resilience into our systems, we move closer to a future where homes in BARMM are not only safer, but also foundations for lasting peace and sustainable development. Thank you very much, and good morning.
So thank you for highlighting the importance of the leadership of the government. So the next presenter will be Ms. Pradasanie Kumari. So I'll invite you to come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Arwin. So the institutional base for climate resilient housing for Nepal are some of these policies which you can see they have been amended, and it's like from 2017, 18 and 30. So the amendment emphasizes on decentralization of institutional base for climate resilient housing, which is also in alignment with the Sendai framework. The National Strategic Action Plan of DRR, which is 2018 and 30, specially focuses on ZC approach, which includes that no one is left behind, as well as it also emphasizes on Build Back Better approach. So we have a temporary shelter guideline and also private housing retrofitting, reconstruction and rehabilitation guideline as well. So as soon as the disaster occurs, how does the temporary ward committee gets activated is I'm trying to show you in this. As soon as the disaster happens, the ward committee, which is the local disaster management country, and it's the smallest unit of rural and urban municipality. So it does damage assessment, and accordingly it helps to store the information in disaster information management system. After after they have entered in the disaster information management system, then the grant money is issued to them, and it's almost like $173 in 2 installation. And this is just for temporary shelter, in which the government provides the basic things like foods and also some trampoline and GCI seats for temporary shelter. And there is also the digital database helps to avoid duplication. And as soon as the ward committee enters it, it will be the funding will be transferred from district and to local level disaster management fund, and the technical support to local implementing bodies is also provided with collaboration with NDRRMA. So, as I mentioned earlier, the procedure for grants for retrofitting, and this is the method used for the earthquake sheltering, which post-earthquake shelter, which was like 850,000 built by NDRRMA, which we also heard in the morning session. So over here, the procedure is specially designed for providing the structure financial support in installation for all 3 tiers of government, and is definitely a framework for grant distribution. It also prioritizes structural safety and long-term disaster resilience for affected communities. So it also has the provision that if the family is very ultra poor and vulnerable community, some extra cash is also provided to them. And we do have the provision of relocation of vulnerable community, but that's really tough because relocating can be very I mean, sometimes even the people over there, they oppose for relocation, but I think there are 3 programs going on for relocation. And for relocation, the NDRRMA plays a vital role with and it tries to identify or tries to do this disaster hazard mapping, and on the basis of that, relocation of vulnerable community is also practiced in few districts. So we have also a grievance management mechanism within that procedure. So if anyone feels like something is missing or they have some grievance, they can tell to the ward level management committee. And also almost recently around 1,300 reconstruction has been done within 6 months. So now what can be the positive aspect of this procedure is it is a really it emphasizes on decentralized system so that the community is involved within during the disaster, and also it's like importance of community driven construction, and also as we heard earlier that it's also somehow like it provides the flexibility of owner driven housing settlement. So like if government is providing almost like it's like 3 lakh, then it's given in three installments. So there are certain you have to complete, then only you are going to get the installment, and it's directly transferred to the person account, as we saw in the video yesterday as well. So somehow, as we heard, that the Sindh government has also applied the same provision as we have applied in Nepal. So these are some of the basic policy institution which guides for our settlement programs. And so if you look at the opportunities, there are multi-level engagement among government, private and civil sector. Similarly, building codes are in practice, and in Kathmandu you cannot right now, in Valley you cannot build a house without prior approval of building codes, and which is strictly been in place right now. Also we have SOC responsive social protection, recognition of ultra poor and vulnerable group for housing support, as I mentioned earlier, resettlement and relocation as well. And Nepal's climate strategy has been emphasizing on climate resilient urban settlement. So we do, as earlier session, we do pose some challenges: high exposure to climate and geophysical hazards. So multi-hazard early warning system is one of the most necessary for us, and capacity constraints like technical, financial and administrative across federal, provincial and especially local governments. Especially so after post-disaster, after post-disaster, it's the technical lack of technical capacity is delays the reporting and delays also detailed damage assessment. So it's somehow difficult. And since I will just skip my slide. And also towards scalable climate resilient housing, it has a solid policy and institutional base for disaster risk reduction, and we still have key gap remains. Just to take away, what I would like to say is we really need a trained skill manpower during resettlement issues, and also the optimum utilization of available natural and financial resources is one of the most important things. And whenever we talk about community resilience, I think we also need to think of diversifying the means of livelihood of those people living over there, because that's also one of the most important things. And also sharing financial burden maybe can be like in one of the province have started insurance of disaster. So, but more, which helps in sharing the burden, and in case of scaling resilient housing and community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Pradasanie. Ms. Pradasanie, yeah, thank you. Without further ado, we continue to the last presenter, Mr. Rashid Razzak. Please share your insight and your experience. Please give a hand, big applause.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon to everybody. We were given a project, a title and also a timeline by Arwin. I will try to stick to that. Okay? So, but let me share. I've come here to briefly share the lesson on how climate resilient housing can be scaled. And especially focusing on the institutional realities of Balochistan. Okay, I'll give it. Okay, thank you. So, just a quick background. There was a devastated flood in 2022, which hit the whole province almost, except the 2 districts, rendered millions homeless, more than 1 million. To be exact, 284,000 houses completely collapsed. So in response, the government launched one of the, or perhaps the biggest post-disaster housing programs in the history of province in Balochistan. And they established housing reconstruction unit under the FREP project to reconstruct initially 35, but later on they revised it and now 97,000 houses. So far, we have constructed around or more than 18,000 houses, and in the next 2 years, we have to construct the rest of those. So we all know that larger scale reconstruction has a history in Pakistan. There are proven models within Pakistan where people have worked to reconstruct houses, but what is different from Balochistan? Those whichever happened have happened in mostly populated areas, well-connected areas, where things are readily available. But in Balochistan, it was a fundamentally different institutional reality, and the question was completely different. So the question was whether it was possible to do it on a scale, or whether the institutions themselves must adapt to deliver a scale in this fragile context. So why institutions matter in Balochistan then? We understand that the scale basically exposes the institutional stress. So just giving you a context of Balochistan, the people live in sparsely populated areas. The settlements are far and wide. And Balochistan being 43% of Pakistan, normally there are districts which, if not bigger than other provinces, are equal to other provinces in terms of size. So then there was these issues of banking and payment. There were no banks, no payment channels available to us. And also the supplier market itself was very thin. And what it does, actually, it increases your cost. Cost of what? Coordination, your monitoring, and your oversight cost. So in such context, let me tell you, scaling not only is a construction challenge, but becomes an institutional design challenge. And this is what we faced in Balochistan. Okay. So from experience, from our learning, we basically, we say that there are 4 core institutional pillars, starting from governance, capacity, community, and technology. So these pillars are interdependent. And if they don't work together, the reconstruction on a scale is not possible. Let me start with governance. So governance, from governance we mean, especially in the context of Balochistan, that there should be clear institutional ownership. But there should also be legal and regulatory frameworks already existing There should also be enforceable standards and intersectoral coordination. These are key for government. And I would personally say that there should be dedicated implementation arrangements rather than these ad hoc structures which we normally, implement whenever such a situation arises. Then we go to capacity. So in our case, capacity is not only limited to institutions. We also see this or watch this as a capacity of community as well. So for example, our teams have been building the community capacity by financially including them, through women empowerment, and not only women empowerment, but project management, which is completely unique thing for them. But also, we are training the masons, and even after the project life, they can continue building the same kind of houses or on the same models which they are doing now. So the third one was community. So for us, our learning is that climate resilience cannot be scaled only through top-down delivery alone. It should be community-led approaches and owner-driven, and their involvement in each and every aspect of the project is a key. And that ensures inclusive reconstruction. So communities, they are also acting as our first layer of quality assurance. They make sure that their house is strong, resilient, and catering for all those, or addressing all those climate-related challenges.
What we have to, let's say, we have to discuss is how to have the institutional pathways. That's most important that we have to, as a result for our discussion. So, without further ado, I would like to invite one or two questions from the floor, and to who presenters that you would want to ask. Please, number one, please, and then microphone. Second, if they also, yes, lady over there, this lady with green. So yeah, the microphone. Yeah, please, sir.
Thank you. This is Asadullah, Project Director, IFRAP. Our colleague Rashid Saab is leading the biggest reconstruction, housing reconstruction program in the province. My question is, I think Ms. Kapadia would be more suitable to answer that when it is about the research. When we enter in a project like housing after disaster, so we do not have much time, and it is a time of emergency that we get into the project without much research or planning. So is there, while scaling up the project after coming out of the emergency phase, after 4 or 5 or 6 months later on, while the project timeline is for the 3 or 4 years, so is there any phase that should be kept for the research, that how to scale up and learn from the experiences already have done or have been faced, the challenges have been faced in the project? So isn't there be any phase for the research within the project time before scaling up? Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, please answer that.
Thank you so much for this question. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Thank you for this question. This is precisely what I'm arguing at this very point. We have in Pakistan faced multiple crises. And the emergency phase, perhaps for 2005, when the clusters were formed, that was unique. In 2010, when one UN program was being implemented, Pakistan was out of the two countries. After Jordan, Pakistan was another country where one UN program was happening. And the entire infrastructure was laid. Capacities were built. In 2022, we were exposed that what happened to those capacity buildings. The time is not in the future. The time already is in the past. And I am arguing that, in terms of crisis and conflicts, these mechanisms of emergency response as reactionary things should be converted as preemptive care, i.e., research should be an integral part of the systems, and planning mechanisms should be a systems thinking. I'm going further away very consciously from the integrated approach into a comprehensive development plans. We cannot live anymore in silos. We cannot work individually in sectors. Intersectoral approaches are also of the past. We need to move forward with a very empowered community, which is also to transfer this capacity of research and thinking and critical understanding of materialities down to the community. So, and that's where I am reimagining this entire sector as a humanitarian reset.
Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Rahima Pamar here. I work as a gender and disability social inclusion consultant.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Rahima Pamar, work as a development professional. So actually, much part of my question has already covered by Sobia Kapadia, Cyber. And thank you for all panelists for your insightful discussions and suggestions as well. While hearing you, I was just thinking that when we talk about the scalable climate resilient housing schemes, how we can actually ensure the sustainability first, because we live in a country where floods is not a new phenomena, and after 4 to 5 years we have to actually gone through this kind of situation. The other thing is basically the integrated approach. This discussion has been already initiated in Sindh and at Pakistan level as well since last year. How we can actually ensure the integrated approach. So in a village, we are actually claiming that this is the particular village where we have established, we have constructed climate resilient housing schemes. Now the people have access to safe drinking water, safe sanitation. They have also access to quality education, quality health services, and all municipal services. So is there any way forward you can, as a forum, can suggest or recommend? Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is to whom? The question is for whom? The question? Anyone, okay. So anyone who would answer, Mr. Esmael?
Thank you for the question, sister. The issue of scaling a resilient housing program cannot be done by one group of people or one group of organization. It should be a all-out approach. For example, the government can lead the direction, and the importance of other units also can also be very critical in the development of that scale resilient housing program in the region. We have seen in many countries, that a resilient housing program is a multifaceted approach and strategy done in different countries. And the success of that program is very imminent to us. That again, can only be done, cannot be done by one or two groups of institutions or of the people. But what is very important here is the government should play a very important role. The government should be, as mentioned by the sister, should not only reacting or the issue of reactive to the issue, but they have to have that kind of strategy that even before the arrival of any kind of disaster, the government is already ready to come up in answering the issue of resiliency housing program in our region. So I think that is very critical, and it's a very good question. Again, I would like to emphasize here that it is a multifaceted approach that can come up with a very successful solution to the issue of housing resiliency. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a connected question?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Well, I can only speak about our experience in the Philippines. That in the Philippines we are moving forward with all government institutions. The government does the planning program, and we work with other stakeholders as well. The issue and the context of public-private partnership is very critical and is very, very important. We cannot do this alone. The government cannot do this alone. But with the partnership and participation and collaboration of other stakeholders, I think we can be successful in adopting that kind of issue and program in the future. But maybe other countries, our Nepal and maybe our friends from Pakistan can share the question. Is there any kind of...
you can answer, yes.
Answer, but perhaps other people can also have a opportunity.
Nepal.
So this will be the last, because we have to wrap up. So Ms. Pradasanie.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, as I said you that we have during and after, even pre-disaster, we have this multi-stakeholder committee in Nepal, which activates under the chairmanship of CEO of NDRRMA. So it helps in the interconnectedness and also in multi-stakeholder connection, so that the security agency is deployed, and also all other, even the ward level community, as I mentioned earlier, so that even the Ministry of Physical Urban Development is deployed. So we do have such committee, and it functions before as well as even after the disaster. And regarding your JETC issue, we do have the system of BIPAD portal, information system, which helps us to collect the information, daily information of what has happened all over the country, the disaster. So everyone can just open it and see what are the disasters that has happened overall in the country. So it's also very effective, and the information is disseminated very quickly through the use of telecommunication. So if there is, last time in 2025, we had a big flood. And so we had received almost early warning system was so effective in Nepal. We almost received 15 minutes ago that there is going to be a high flood, so please stay away. So yeah, that's somehow it was very preventable for us, and it's really helpful. So last time there was similar type of flood, but as I mentioned earlier, a command post was established under the chairmanship of CEO, which helped to disseminate the messages, and everyone in that area got the message from the government saying that there will be flood and you can be prepared for that. So that's how I think interconnectedness, multi-sector government helps to prevent during the disaster. Thank you.
Arwin,
Yes,
one
please.
Last comment. I think the question was regarding sustainability. Just a quick comment, when you talk of sustainability, if you are giving free money just like we are doing currently through this project, then this is not sustainable. But if you think of otherwise, if you think of resilience, if you think of designs and other things and your minimum guidelines, for example, we are getting just 400,000 rupees, and they are constructing one home. That is a home, one house, but one room, but a home. So resilience, I would say, is not a luxury. It's a compulsion currently. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that. Now it already finished the presentation. I would like to, I'm thankful for your presentation. Please big applause to our presenters again.